Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the podcast. This is The Civil Point with none other than your host, moi, Eriana Dieva. And we are back with a brand new episode here tonight as we discuss more insane incompetence and delusions that could become reality when it comes to this administration, when it comes to Trump's administration. So we're going to get into it tonight because I want to focus on something really big with really big implications when it comes to the 2028 election. But before I do that, if you guys haven't already, you guys can go ahead and enjoy this show and get notified of the show every time you're on YouTube, because you can follow the show, The Civil Point, with me, your host, Eriana Dieva, right now on YouTube, as well as if you have other social media platforms, including Facebook, as well as TikTok. You can follow us at TCP Clips to hear all the insanity that is going on in the world currently. But right now, we're going to go ahead and dive into some insane things. One thing I want to dive into today is going to be an interview that I feel has had not enough publicity and attention as it should. It is scary. It is disheartening. It is eerie. It is foreshadowing, foretelling, and obviously a plan in play for Trump to become president and continue his presidency, I should say, in a consecutive term into his third term. Now, the interview I'm talking about, he interviews Steve Bannon, who is a former executive White House chief strategist. And this interview becomes very eerie when you hear how he's speaking, when you hear what he's saying, and what the intentions are behind Donald Trump becoming president for a third term consecutively for a second in 2028. So we're going to go ahead and head on over to this interview. So this is a clip from Facebook, and it kind of points out all the chaotic, insane, and delusional thought points and right-wing propaganda points when it comes to Trump and his third term as president. As we all know, Trump is not going to be another term in presidency. We all know that. It's not supposed to happen like that. We all know that Trump is supposed to accept and transition peacefully like he is supposed to do and was supposed to do in 2020. But we know that's not the plan. So let's go ahead and go into Steve Bannon here and see what he has to say. And why this is so scary is because Steve Bannon is a close White House advisor to Trump, a close personal friend to Trump. So you don't think that this man knows everything Trump is going to be doing, the plans? I mean, he is a chief strategist. Let's go ahead and take a look.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan. We had long...
So it's not that he's just at the will of the people going to be the 2028 presidential elect. Not by a popular vote, not by the electoral vote. No, not by the 22nd Amendment that should stop him. No, Steve Bannon is saying there is a plan in place to have Trump serve a third term. And that plan in place isn't by the will of the American people. It's by the destruction of the American people on American soil. How many times has Trump said, or, humorly joked about that, oh, there can't be a change of power if there's a war going on? You think that there's Steve Bannon, saying there's a plan in place. If there's a plan in place that is at the detriment, harm, and death of American people, these lawmakers need to be held accountable prior to this absurd plan that Steve Bannon is talking about that is in play to have Trump serve a third term.
Longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy.
Here it is.
He's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you could tell this of how he's pulled this off.
Do you not see the sickness in these people's head that have voted for Trump, that are embedded in this cult of MAGA? They believe he's a divine instrument for their own personal prosecution and persecution of every other minority community that they don't believe should have American citizenship. Let's get that straight. Out of Steve Bannon's own words, a former executive chief strategist for the White House, close to Donald Trump, has said that Donald Trump is a divine instrument and he cannot not be president in 2028 because the plan isn't finished. And obviously that plan is the destruction of civil rights, the destruction of women's rights, the destruction of LGBTQ plus rights, the destruction of civility for any community that is not white Christian nationalism.
We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through Zanny and define all those terms.
But you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it.
If the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
Would the American people be going against the spirit of...
By the mechanisms we have, will the American people be tearing up the Constitution by voting for Trump in 2028? We already know Trump has alluded to the fact that he has had those machines rigged in the 2024 election. Allegedly, he has alluded to that fact. Now, you don't think with the power they centrally have right now and the abuse of power that this executive branch and administration has shown, with the corruptness that they don't have access to then fraudulently vote him back into office come 2028, even though he's ineligible to serve a third term? Trump and Bannon right here is saying it very clearly. There is a plan. He will be president because the actual vendetta of this illegitimate persecution of white Christian men is not finished yet, because they have a vendetta against American citizens who do not look like them.
The Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all.
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump... President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing...
Horrible negotiations, by the way.
Rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's...
No.
I guess that's why it seems to me some kind of tension there.
The only way...
At first, he said there's no room for discussion in regards to Trump being president in 2028. It is going to happen, and there's no room for anyone to dissent from that. Then he talks about internationally, about Trump's international affairs and how he has to give and take. Yes, when it comes to international affairs, Trump can't just wield his big hammer and say, this is how it's going to go. No, he has to be at least somewhat diplomatic when it comes to international negotiations and affairs. But when it comes to American soil and dictatorship, that's where it tends to be now a serious issue. When Bannon spends 20 minutes talking about how there can be no dissent, how there will be no American will of the people because there is a plan in place for Trump to become president, stay president in our 2028 term, now for a third term as president in our presidential history. So the fact that Katie Couric was able to willingly point out, hey, you literally just said for 20 minutes that the American people have no choice. He's going to be president because you guys are not finished with the mechanism that he provides for you to implement this sick ideological plan of Project 2025 that centralizes the government, creates a fascist government and a fascist dictatorship in our American soil. So let's get it really clear here. Yes, Trump has to be somewhat diplomatic when it comes to international affairs, but when it comes to homegrown soil that he is the president of, that he's trying to alter to a dictatorship, it tends to get a little dicey and a little bit different because he's wielding his abuse of power against the American people if he creates this false sense of insecurity when it comes to American human beings in the term of 2028 to then retain his presidency and stay in power. That is what I call treason.
President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started.
We need to finish what we started. That is a clear shot because these people, MAGA does not believe that Americans come in every shape, every color, every creed. These maggots don't believe that, and we know that for a fact that they don't believe that. So when they say Americans, they know they're talking about a select group of white Christian nationalist men that represent America in their eyes, not the true America, which is represented by every color, every religion, and every gender, and every person when it comes to the pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty on American soil. They want to go into these discussions with an originalist point of view when it comes to when they made the Constitution. Well, maybe they didn't really make it for black people and brown people and women. They made it for the people who started to build this country in regards to wiping out the American Native Indians with diseases. That's who they meant to protect with the Constitution, and this is what Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, the MAGA movement represents, an originalist view that does not include any demographic that doesn't include white men. So that's why I want to be very specific in regards to who they consider Americans, because who they consider Americans will then vote Donald Trump into presidency. And when they consider everyone who is not a part of that demographic a non-American, it's true. Only Americans voted him in. So it's very selective, it's very devious, it's very dubious, and it's very disgusting what they're doing in regards to voting rights in this country, in regards to redistricting. It's all adding up. It's the writing on the wall for everyone not having a say in who becomes president in 2028. So, it continues to be this whole dichotomy when it comes to the truth, the Constitution, and what is represented in our Constitution versus what is actually our Constitution is supposed to dole out in regards to law. And when we talk about Trump, it's not even Bannon that's just saying it. It's Trump who is using strategic irony and like plausible deniability humor in regards to the veiled humor he puts on social media with posts like this. It's continuously out here. Trump 2028, 2046, Trump forever. He's literally normalizing a third term, gauging public perception. And then on top of gauging that public perception, he's just ingraining the thought and the normalization of him becoming president or staying president in the term of 2028. It's veiled humor. It's humor that has a truth to it. Haha, I make you laugh, but I'ma screw you in the end because I'm really being truthful about what I am saying. So when it comes to Trump, when it comes to Steve Bannon, this is exactly what they're all saying. But I want to turn to another section in regards to this Steve Bannon interview. And it touches on the great white replacement theory, which has infested the maggot movement, which has infested young white men to believe that they have been persecuted, that they have been wronged or offended or had jobs stolen from them because of DEI, have had opportunities taken from them, that they are the victims. This great white replacement theory has created this victimhood mentality when it comes to this movement of MAGA. So I want to play this one clip from this interview with Steve Bannon. Let's go into it.
It's always come back to the little guy. This is the fourth turning. The strength of the populist nationalist MAGA movement in this country is we're anti-fragile. We're resilient. You can give us your best shot. You can put us in prison. You can take our credit cards away. You can debank us. You can deplatform us. You can have all the tech stuff that happen. We can't be beaten if we don't quit. And if that takes hot rhetoric, you ain't seen nothing yet, because we're now getting into the middle of this fight, and we're never gonna kowtow to these people. We're never gonna get on our knees to these people. We're never gonna apologize. We're never gonna say we're sorry. All we care about is victory begets victory begets victory, and we know that we're ascendant and they're in decline.
So Steve.
And this is why I say MAGA and the elites in MAGA are very scary. They have an agenda. And with people that have blinders on, that have an agenda, it does not matter the destruction they cause to any other person, any other identity, any other religion. It does not matter. When that agenda is clear, their focus is set, and now they have a mechanism of power to achieve their goal of white nationalism and Christianity in the United States. It's very scary because now they have that mechanism to destroy the fabric of America that has been created, especially over the last 50 years, for minority communities. So when we talk about the great white replacement theory, this is what I'm talking about. Steve Bannon making these claims that they're not finished yet. We need Trump in the presidency for one more term at least to finish what they started. It's this whole great white replacement theory that truly isn't a theory, it's a fear. It's the great white fear that they are going to be held to account for their wrongdoings, that they're going to be held to account for the people they hurt or the people they killed. It's not about this whole, oh my God, people are going to replace the demographics of white people. Just because other demographics are growing in numbers does not displace you in the United States, especially because you're such a large demographic when it comes to the white people. It's insane to me to think that these people that have such a hold and such a grip on power in the United States from its inception still believe that they've been wronged, that they are the persecuted. And it's a fear. So in retaliation and a vendetta of fear, they continue to unjustly target, discriminate, and hurt minority communities. And this is why MAGA has become such an infested water of swamp, because they have filled young white men's minds with this garbage that women are inferior, that Black people are, I don't even want to get into the racist texts that have been shared through the Republican text threads, but that Black people are inferior, that every other dominant group, every other minority group is inferior to white people. And this is the rhetoric that's fed to them. So it's continuously happening. It's continuously going on. And this interview with Steve Bannon shows complete negligence when it comes to the accountability and the letter of the law of our Constitution. And that's the true grip on this whole issue here, is that they continue using this veiled humor, especially Trump on his social media and Truth Social. They continue to use this veiled humor to purport this idea of Trump being in presidency in 2028, while using that humor to really incentivize and strategically and ironically place the idea and normalize the idea of Trump being president in 2028. But we're going to go ahead and move on here, because I wanted to talk about another thing, another issue that we have coming up, and that is the fact that our Supreme Court of the United States is going to be discussing whether or not they should hear a case in regards to Obergefell v. Hodges. And if you don't know what Obergefell v. Hodges is, it's the Same-Sex Equality Marriage Act when it comes to the decision of the Supreme Court to acknowledge that same-sex marriages have to be valid and equal in the eyes of the law. So let's turn to this here before I get into this. So on November 7th, the Supreme Court, this isn't about hearings or arguments or anything like that. They are just going to be discussing whether or not they should hear a case in regards to Kim Davis, who obviously wants this same-sex marriage precedent to be overturned. They're going to hear and discuss whether or not they should hear this argument. And obviously we know that the Supreme Court is extremely conservative. So and we already said the track record and the trajectory is to roll back civil rights and human rights to literally before the 1860s, probably, to be honest. So when it comes to this, I want to go back and revisit something that I said back in early September. In early September, there was a news source that broke about Justice Clarence Thomas. And we all know how conservative Justice Clarence Thomas is. We all know what a sellout to the Black community and minority communities Justice Clarence Thomas is. And Justice Clarence Thomas, I'm going to pull up the article that I revisited back in September of 2025. But Justice Clarence Thomas literally said that precedent is not gospel. This is dangerous words by a Supreme Court justice, especially when it comes to civil rights and civil liberties. This man, this burnt Muppet-looking mother, decides our rights. He decides court cases that can affect the rights of every human being in the United States. And now what's on the docket is the destruction of same-sex marriage. Now, who knows? When it comes to their decision, if they decide same-sex marriage is no longer legal in the United States, who knows? Is it going to be illegal where going forward no marriages can exist in regards to same-sex marriage? Or will it be to the most extreme extent where they retroactively nullify and annul each same-sex marriage in the United States. Now, I don't see that happening, but at the same time, given the extremism and the corruptness of this court, I can see them continuously going after so far as to retroactively nullify and disband every same-sex marriage that has occurred in the United States. So it's just scary to know that now, on November 7th, they are going to have a discussion in regards to hearing Kim Davis's case, in regards to hearing the banning of same-sex marriage and making it illegal in the United States. It's only been legal for 10 years. And as they continue to roll back civil liberties and rights and very important and prominent Supreme Court decisions and opinions that relay the fabric of America and create equality, it tends and continues to get scarier and scarier and scarier. They rolled back Roe v. Wade, returned it to the states, and now women are having extreme healthcare issues when it comes to getting abortions, to where states are now trying to track women who go outside of their states for abortions to then sue them for having that abortion and sue the doctor on top of that. Huge states' rights issue there. But it continues, and it's like, if it doesn't stop at Roe v. Wade, it's not going to stop at Obergefell v. Hodges. It's probably not going to stop until they get to, Brown versus Board of Education, where it desegregated schools. So it continues to have a snowball of effect, and it doesn't seem like we are able to stop it as an American public who see what the destruction of civil liberties that are happening. And yet, we're standing here because we have to go to work every day. We're standing here because we have to pay bills and feed our families. We're standing here trying to be normal, hardworking individuals while these corrupt, disgusting, grotesque, evil, religious freaks continue to destroy and strip away civil liberties that exist for equality and the fabric of America to exist for everyone freely, fairly, and equally. So it's very scary when it comes to all these decisions that are being made. And then on top of it, I just want to continuously hammer away in regards to Obergefell v. Hodges. That is a Supreme Court decision that is instrumental in regards to having the right to marry for same-sex couples. It's essentially giving same-sex couples the legality of being noticed and verified legally through law that your marriage exists. And no legal entity or state entity or federal entity can strip you away of that right to marry, of that right to be verified. What the complete manipulation of this opinion and precedent is that religious people think that churches are being forced to marry gay people. And that is simply untrue when it comes to Obergefell v. Hodges. Obergefell v. Hodges does not force churches to marry gay people. It forces state and federal entities to recognize same-sex marriages for legal purposes. It does not force churches to marry gay people. It does not infringe on your right to refuse to marry gay people. It continuously separates, as we should, separate church and state, legal and mumbo jumbo. Okay? That's what Obergefell v. Hodges does. So when it comes to now this decision on whether they're going to hear arguments in regards to Obergefell v. Hodges, it's just like, all right, they're coming after Roe v. Wade. They're coming after abortion and women's health care. They're coming after gay rights and gay rights to marry and exist together. Then they're going to come after segregation, and they're rolling our time clock back until no one has rights in the United States. So right now, it's not about gay people versus straight people. It's not about black people versus police. It's not about black people versus white people. It's not about ICE versus Mexicans. It's not about illegal immigrants versus American citizens. And it's never been about that. They continue, and the elites and the powerful in our government continue to have these rhetorics down your throat to distract you from the issue that who is making these policies? Who is creating these two dichotomy of worlds to exist for you guys to fight? It is the powerful, it is the elite, it is our government. So let's make it very clear. Make it very clear that our government is the issue. Our government and their officials are not being held to account. So they have to distract you from targeting them. That's what it is. So, Obergefell v. Hodges, we already knew this coming. We knew that the Supreme Court was it was on their plan, it was on their docket, and we knew it was coming. But we just didn't think it would be this quick, as they're continuously making extreme strides in regards to their Project 2025. But what I also wanted to talk about today is Trump's explosion on Truth Social. He is so pissed that people and countries are criticizing him. Oh my God, on the tariffs. On the tariffs. It's a huge issue for Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and pop this up here. He had a whole meltdown on Truth Social that people were criticizing, or countries, Canada was criticizing his tariff. So let's go ahead and read this here. Canada was caught red-handed putting up a fraudulent advertisement on Ronald Reagan's speech on tariffs. The Reagan Foundation said they created an ad campaign using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address and did not seek or nor receive permission to use the remarks. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in this manner. The sole purpose of this fraud, something he knows too well about, was Canada's hope that the United States Supreme Court will come to their rescue on tariffs that they have used to hurt us and the United States for years. Now the United States is able to defend itself. I'm not going to go into this because it's just series of fraud allegations, but it's Trump once again upset that people are spitting out actual facts about how his tariffs in the long run will be detrimental not only to America, America's people, but our relationships to other countries, like throughout the world. Our trading components will be destroyed. Our trust components with other countries will be destroyed because of his tariffs. And now, isn't it funny? I just want to say this. Isn't it funny when we talk about, the whole gender war and gender political narrative, that Kamala would have been a little bit too emotional to be in that presidency seat, to be in that White House and run this country. Yet we have a big fat baby in Trump getting butthurt and upset and offended by an ad from Canada that criticizes his tariffs. And he decides, because he's offended that his policies are being exposed for the fraudulent nature they are, he goes and says, I'm going to place more tariffs on Canada. Isn't that giving a little bit too much of PMS for Donald Trump himself? Isn't that giving a little bit too much of emotional instability for Donald Trump? And yet Kamala would have been too emotional to run the country. Yet we have a 500-pound baby running our country. It's called gender It's called gender. It's called gender when it comes to these dynamics. And it's just annoying because it's always a gender political narrative that has to be placed where women would not be enough to run for president, to be in the presidency, because they're too emotional. Yet we have Donald Trump here being offended by an ad from another country. So when we talk about this ad, I wanted to pull it up because I wanted to play it. I don't know if it's going to get me taken down, but it is what it is. I wanted to play it because I wanted clarity when it comes to this ad. Where is the ad? Where's the ad? Where'd it go? Oh, here we go.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
So Trump is upset at that ad because he feels like this ad targeted him. It destroyed his credibility and revealed the truth about tariffs in the long run. And the snippets used from Ronald Reagan's speech is from a radio address back in 1987, where Ronald Reagan was talking about how implementing tariffs should never be America's first line of defense. It should be communication and trade negotiations. But if tariffs are necessary to implement against countries for goods coming into this country, then okay, we can implement them. But in the long run, if they continue to go on for months, years, decades, in the long run, it leads to economic instability, inflation, Americans paying more for priced goods. It leads to, as well as countries that start to isolate and against the United States when it comes to international trade. It's all these things in the long run that could affect America's stability and economic growth when it comes to tariffs. So this ad, Trump is claiming, takes snippets and manipulates and misrepresents what tariffs do for the United States. But Ronald Reagan, who I trust way more than Trump, I would listen to his snippets than a full address from the White House and the Oval Office Trump does nearly every day, where he's barely coherent, barely can stand, and just attacks and uses the same Republican and MAGA talking points to denounce, destroy, and discredit America. Yeah, I trust Ronald Reagan over Donald Trump, for sure, even if it's snippets. But what's happening is he's saying that it's a misrepresentation of his tariffs. But the truth is, the snippets that were taken from the actual radio address from Ronald Reagan actually still contain the sentiment when it gets snipped out and put into a minute-long advert. And it's true. So why I think Donald Trump got so pressed, so upset, so mad, and decided to lash out immaturely to add more tariffs on top of the tariffs we already taxed on Canada was because his ego felt threatened. His stability started to crumble because now internationally there's ads showing exactly how tariffs in the long run do not help the country and do not help the international socio-economic world at large. Trump believes his tariffs are going to save America. But truth is, they're destroying America. They're destroying Americans, and they're going to continue to inflate the prices of American goods and the goods that American consumers have to buy on a daily basis, to where we are going to be in a Great Depression within a year. So Trump being upset about an ad and then being emotionally immature and pressing more tariffs on top of Canada says exactly more about his care about his own self-preservation versus the preservation of the American people and what the American people are about to go through come November, and the government shutdown with SNAP benefits being restricted and revoked. Okay? Let's lean on that there. Trump is more concerned about his appearance and how tariffs can affect his appearance and his deals versus the starving American people that could come November. He's worried about making sure Canada pays for its misstep in misrepresenting the tariffs versus trying to fix our government shutdown to ensure that kids and women and families don't go hungry. So in regards to the government shutdown, I did want to tackle this as well here. Let me just pull this up. The government shutdown happened, I believe, 24 days ago now. And it has not been reopened, obviously, thanks to Magic Mike Johnson with the blush all over his cheeks. Definitely a closeted one. But he continues to perpetuate and spout these lies about the shutdown and how it's a Democratic shutdown. But let's all talk about the reality of it. It's a Democrat shutdown hoax, because this falls on the Republicans. And right now, the Republicans in office are squirming at the fact that the people are starting to realize it. And when people become hungry come November, when SNAP benefits don't get accessed into their account to feed their families, people will understand that this is a Republican shutdown, not a Democrat shutdown. And the nefarious nature of this shutdown is that it's about money and lining the pockets of Donald Trump and people who are in the swamp next to him. Okay? Democrats continue to argue that we will not open this government unless the Republicans agree to cap the subsidies and extend the subsidies for healthcare so healthcare prices and premiums do not rise for American citizens going into the next year. The Republicans continue and refuse to acknowledge that point made by the Democrats, continue to push it aside, and spout out lies that the Democrats only want to reopen the government if they are able to be given illegal aliens health care and transgender surgeries for everyone. This is untrue and propaganda. Okay? So when it comes to the government shutdown itself, I want to be very clear. It is not a Democrat shutdown. It is a moral failure from the Republican Party, who look to line their pockets by increasing the healthcare prices and drug prices for Americans in need. Now, I just want to talk about the irony here, because a few weeks ago, I did a segment in regards to Donald Trump brokering a deal with Pfizer. And this deal allows Pfizer to import drugs into the United States. And those tariffs on those drugs would be repealed or stalled. But in regards to this brokered deal, Pfizer has to import their drugs at a minimum price. And now, what do we know? TrumpRx is going to be up and running very soon. This insurance fraud scheme by Trump is going to be up and running. So now he is going to be doling and contributing to the increased drug prices. While they're imported at a low, he can exorbitantly increase them at a high and pocket the difference. It is about lining his pockets. It's about self-preservation. It's not about the American people. So isn't it ironic that the shutdown happens, the Republicans are arguing basically, no, we want to increase the healthcare prices, be able to increase the healthcare and drug prices of Americans, because now look at this, they're going to be making bank money when it comes to the imported drugs from Pfizer, who import them at a minimum price, where now they can gouge them. The Republicans and Trump can gouge them at a larger price through TrumpRx in this insurance fraud scheme. It's literally insane. And it's not about coincidence. It's not a coincidence, and I stand 10 toes by it. It's not a coincidence. It's all coordination. And the timeline adds up. Why won't the Republicans allow Democrats to fight for Americans to cap the subsidies and extend the subsidies? Why will they not agree to it? Because look at the timeline and look at the money they're going to be able to make in the next year when it comes to TrumpRx and the broker deal between Pfizer. It's a pharmaceutical drug scheme and an insurance fraud scheme from our own president to line his own pockets. And that is the simple timeline truth. So, on that, it's frustrating to see a man continuously vie for American people and be anti-establishment. But the only reason he's anti-establishment is to destroy the establishment so that way he can create a new one to line his own pockets. It's not about Americans. It's not about the American people or citizens. It's always been about Trump, and it will always be about Trump and how he can grift off of the American public and become the filthiest, richest man in America. Anyway, guys, this is the end of this episode of the Civil Point with your host, Eriana Dieva. If you haven't already, you guys can go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and you can follow me on these platforms such as YouTube, which you're watching me on right now, or Facebook and TikTok at TCP Clips. We talk about all the bullshit that's going on in regards to that man and our government as a whole. And we try and weather the shitstorm, and we try to expose the receipts, the proof, the timeline, everything to prove that this government is a corrupt, grifting piece of crap. Both sides, but mostly Republicans Anyway, have a good night, guys, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Pay attention to those timelines and pay attention because it's no coincidence. It's all coordination to line Trump's pockets. Good night.